Coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles now, could the Birds sign a veteran linebacker in Myles Jack to add some depth? And could Philadelphia cut a former first-round pick in the form of Derek Barnett? It's all coming your way, but first, if you're subscribed to us here on Philadelphia Eagles now, you made the right choice by hitting that sub button. Year-round daily coverage on the Birds, but also that means that you're a real one. Real one. Roll call. Give me a real one down in the chat, and let's start the show right now. Today's Philadelphia Eagles, now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior, is presented by Roan. You can get 20% off your order at roan.com/chatsports. Promo code chatsports. They just sent me a new polo that I'm going to debut next week. I already wore it the other day. It's awesome. So too is the commuter shirt. Enter the promo code chatsports at roan.com/chatsports. You think about it, right? Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, and Roan stepped up to the challenge. Their commuter collection will get you through whatever comes across your day, whether you're playing 18 holes of golf, night out on the town with your homies, date night with the girl, or if you're just at work as well. The most comfortable and breathable, as well as flexible dress shirts, quarter zips, polos, and pants. They have products for any occasion. That's why I like Roan and all of the versatility that it does have to offer. And it's time to feel confident without the hassle. They have this wrinkle release technology, which is awesome because wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the product. So you're getting what you pay for, but also you save money not having to go to the dry cleaner any longer. And also with Roan products, odor-free technology with Gold Fusion, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Roan is 100% machine washable. So 20% off for the Fly Eagles Fly family for those of you watching Eagles now by entering the promo code chatsports at roan.com/chatsports. This is their commuter shirt. Look how flexible it is. It's awesome. And the material is also durable as well. Look good, feel good, Roan. Signing Myles Jack, something that I saw pop up on my feed, and it's interesting for a couple of reasons here. ESPN's Bill Barnwell looking at some of the top remaining free agents and which teams they could go to. And while the Eagles could use a linebacker here, they lost Kyzir White to the Arizona Cardinals. He followed the fraud and Jonathan Gannon. TJ Edwards got $12 million in guaranteed money to sign with the Chicago Bears as a UDFA, who is a fringe roster guy at first, coming out of Wisconsin, putting himself in a position to get a good payday. I don't blame him for securing the bag. The Eagles don't spend a lot of money on linebackers. That's why they let Kyzir White go. That's why they let TJ Edwards walk, and that's why Howie Roseman hasn't really shown a history of investing in that position. But Myles Jack not going to be owed a lot of money, and the Eagles could use a veteran piece to bulk up the depth. For Myles Jack, would come to Philadelphia with a little bit of pedigree. A lot of you probably know him from his days with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Last year he played with the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2016 second-round pick. 3 straight seasons of 100-plus tackles. That's a good thing, but also a negative thing, which I'll tell you about coming up here in just a few moments. Why I like it and why it could work is the Eagles are 10 deep along the defensive line. So it could allow Myles Jack to thrive a little bit in the standpoint of some of those blockers aren't getting to that second level from the opposing offensive line because they're going to be occupied by the Eagles' defensive line. So Myles Jack could continue to be a tackling machine and continue to be that 100-plus tackle guy because he's not going to have to shed some of those blockers from the opposing offensive line because they're going to be engaged with the Eagles' stout defensive line. Numbers the last 3 years for Myles Jack. We talk about the 100-plus tackles. That's what he's really good at, and he's a surefire tackler, right? He doesn't miss many of them. In 2022 lone season with Pittsburgh on the opposite side of the state, 104. Year before that with the Jaguars, 108 and 118 in 2020. Stylistically, as far as where he would fit in the scheme, you don't put him in the box. You're not going to utilize him in a lot of blitz packages. He is a coverage linebacker. He's just not great in coverage, unfortunately. He has allowed a 100-plus passer rating the last 2 years. So that's the issue with him. But can he survive when you have Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Avonte Maddox in that secondary? And keep in mind that this defensive line had a couple of guys with 11 sacks last year who were still on the team. Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox had 7. And if they're generating that pass rush, sometimes a quarterback doesn't have a lot of time to throw. So Myles Jack won't be targeted as much if the quarterback doesn't have time to survey the field and pick apart your defense. Here's what Barnwell had to say about Jack to the Birds. He seems like an obvious fit. 27 years old, originally drafted by the Jags in 2016. Their general manager at the time was David Caldwell, who now works for the Eagles, so there's a tie there. If Jack wants to continue playing, though, the Eagles would be an ideal landing spot in terms of national attention. Philly's deep defensive line should also help keep blockers off of Jack. That's what Barnwell said, because he probably watches the show here, giving him the best possible chance to make plays. Many Jags fans would argue that Jack was unfairly denied a chance to go to the Super Bowl, and going to the Eagles would give the linebackers best opportunity to make one this season. You look at the Eagles depth chart, and that Super Bowl note is pretty wild, right? Isn't it crazy that the Eagles were very close to taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars when they won the Super Bowl in 2017? Instead, they got the Patriots. The Jags were leading in that game, if you remember. But back to the Eagles linebacking depth chart. This is why Jack could come here and he could get some snaps. And at the very least, he's a veteran who you could trust, once again, to make some tackles. You signed Nicholas Morrow to that one-year deal, very affordable contract. I happen to really like it as one of those classic Howie Roseman value signings. I'm high on Nakobe Dean. I saw him at the draft party for Nolan Smith. Dude is looking yoked. He needed to add some size. You have Sean Bradley, the Temple product, as a backup. Haason Reddick, Sam linebacker, but you know what he is. He's an edge rusher who prioritizes getting after the quarterback. You put in Jack into this equation. I don't really need him to start instead of Nakobe Dean or Nicholas Morrow, right? But as a backup guy, when you go 4-3 occasionally in that hybrid Sean Desai scheme because he's a Vic Fangio staple, okay, I'm cool with it. And it's going to be affordable. So should the Eagles sign Myles Jack? Let's hear from you. You can call me a big dummy down in the comments section. You can say I'm smart. J for Jack, N for nah. You let me know. And as you venture down there, look at these figures here to my right. What growth we've had on Philadelphia Eagles now since I took over the channel. We're approaching 50,000 subscribers already. I took over, let's see, about preseason time last year. We were at 30,000 subscribers. So we're doing well here on a steady clip, but I want to get to 50K really badly. We're 4,600 plus people away. Year-round coverage on the Birds. EAGLES. Subscribe. Could the Eagles cut Derek Barnett? Somewhat of a surprising name put on this Bleacher Report article, as guys who could get cut leading up to or before the regular season. And I've said this about Derek Barnett. Has Derek Barnett lived up to the expectations of being that first-round pick in 2017 when he broke Reggie White's sack record while with the Volunteers? No. Was he a pretty solid player in 2017 as a rookie, and the year after that? For sure. He's dealt with a couple of injuries, but I've kind of compared the start of his career to Brandon Graham's. Brandon Graham was a first-round pick out of Michigan, suffered some injury issues early, like Derek Barnett has, with a couple of knee injury issues, and was labeled as a bust. Eagles fans were clamoring for Earl Thomas to be selected instead of BG, and in the early going of their respective careers, it looked like Brandon Graham was going to be a bust, and the Eagles were going to be haunted by Earl Thomas. But Brandon Graham went on to put together a marvelous career, was a part of one of the biggest plays in Super Bowl history with the strip sack on Tom Brady to clinch the Super Bowl, and he's never been a sack artist, and his career got off to a slow start. So when you compare the first 6 years of Derek Barnett's career to Brandon Graham's, similar playing style, they're not all too twitchy, they do a good job with their bull rushes in their pass rushes, and their numbers are pretty similar when you compare them, the first 6 years. Brandon Graham, 80 games in those first 6. Derek Barnett was 65. He only played in 1 game last year before tearing his ACL. That's why there's a little bit of a difference there. Otherwise, these numbers could favor Derek Barnett. So first 6 years, Brandon Graham, 80 games played, Barnett 65. Graham with the sacks edge, 23.5 in 15 more games. Derek Barnett, 21.5 sacks in 65 games is pretty solid. QB hits, a lot for both of these players. Hurries 179 to 92. Tackles for loss, that's where Graham is very, very good because he's good against the run, but Derek Barnett also pretty solid. So once again, similar playing styles with the bull rush. They're not twitchy athletes or very fast with that first step like Haason Reddick coming off the edge. A traditional defensive end, and both of them have done a good job of getting after the quarterback as evidenced by the numbers. So don't write off Derek Barnett just yet because we wrote off Brandon Graham way too early, and he's gone on to be a Philadelphia icon, a Philadelphia maven, and one of the most important players over the last 10-plus years for this organization. Here's what Bleacher Report had to say about the potential cut of Derek Barnett. At first glance, this may be stunning. Derek Barnett recorded at least 20 pressures from 2019 to 2021 before a torn left ACL ended his 2022 campaign in Week 1. He's an inexpensive player at $3.1 million, and in my estimation, should be kept. Nevertheless, an edge rushing depth chart headlined by Josh Sweat, Haason Reddick, Brandon Graham, and first-rounder Nolan Smith warrants the conversation. By the way, saw some clips of Nolan Smith practicing at the NovaCare complex. Guy has some bend coming across the edge. This is why you could get away, I guess, with cutting Barnett. I would not. I want to see what he can do. I've always been bullish on the player, even though some of his penalties are dumbass penalties. But Eagles' first-string defensive line, it's awesome. It's one of the best in the NFL, if not the best. And their overall depth, as we take a look at the second stringers, is one of the deepest across the NFL. Second-string defensive line, Derek Barnett, Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, Janarius Robinson, and Nolan Smith. A lot of teams across the NFL would covet those assets. Do you think Barnett is a good player or a bad player? Last question before we hop on out of here. G for good, B for bad. Appreciate everybody for watching the show, continuing to support everything that we do. Let's get to 50,000 subscribers because I want that plaque from YouTube when we get to 100K. And with all these watch parties this upcoming season and our steady coverage, we're going to get there before we know it.